Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our webinar weekly. Well, we're now bi-weekly webinars. This is our webinar number 12 in the webinars that the Chamber has been doing since the middle of March. And we really thank you for joining us this morning. As we begin the webinar, again, a reminder to hit yourself and turn off your video if you don't mind. And then also, if you have any questions during the presentation today, please enter them into the chat box and we'll review those at the end of the presentation. So this morning we thank our sponsor, Pro Rehab. And Pro Rehab Physical Therapy opened their Effingham office at 1302 Avenue of America in April of this year. So they kind of came in the middle of everything that's been happening. So we're happy to have them in our community. And they are this is actually the first clinic in Illinois for Pro Rehab Physical Therapy. The Effingham Clinic Director is John Froning. He's the primary treating physical therapy at their facility. And the Pro Rehab specializes in providing exceptional physical therapy through a combination of evidence-based practice, personal patient care, and clinical excellence. So thank you, John and Pro Rehab, for being our sponsor today. So as we mentioned when we had our webinar 2 weeks ago with Dr. Tom Hill, as much as we need information and education on business operations and developments related to the pandemic, we also needed time to refresh ourselves and renew ourselves and our employees. And we're hoping that these series of motivational speakers help you and help all of us do that. So today I'm happy to welcome Jeff Fricknick as our presenter. Jeff has been in education for 34 years and recently retired as the superintendent at Mount Vernon Township High School. He spent 10 years prior to that as the superintendent at Altamont Unit 10 School District. So, and during that time, he was also chairman of the Chamber Board of Directors. So we're happy that Jeff is with us today. Since he's retired from education, he's still working as an independent consultant for business and education entities. I know that Jeff is active in his church and many other activities around his faith and around his desire to help others. So please join me in welcoming Jeff today.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Norma. I really appreciate that, and thank you, Norma, for inviting me to participate in the webinar series. And I'm number 12, so that's the even dozen. So that's a great place for me to be. I also would like to thank this morning Kristen Probst, who is assisting with this entire program. So thank you, Kristen. And as we go through the slideshow this morning, Kristen will be advancing those, so you will be hearing me asking her to move those forward. So we are in a difficult time right now. We all know that. So we're not going to talk a whole lot about the negative side of things this morning, but rather I want to focus more on empowering you as an individual, as a business employee or a business leader. But I also want to empower you with regards to specifically attitude. And, sometimes we don't take the time to really self-reflect and identify what our own attitude is. And so that's why I titled this Attitude is Yours Worth Catching, because as we do self-identify, we may identify that individually, maybe I am not the most positive person that I should be, but there's ways that we're going to talk this morning just briefly on how I could be. So next slide, please, Kristen. We'll jump right into this. We're going to try to play this video, and Kristen, if you could hit that. It's a very short video, and I hopefully you can see this. If it doesn't work, we'll move on, but we'll just get it going here. There's always an advertisement these days. There we go. Well, it looks like that's going to not advance very well. So let's just, we'll just move on. And I'll give you the gist of that with the next slide. So that is a scene from the movie Rudy, and Mr. Rudiger there on the left had been practicing with the University of Notre Dame for 2 years, and he did not make the dress list for the very last game. And the gentleman that is the groundskeeper there on the right, he Rudy was talking about how he deserved, because he worked so hard at trying to make the team at the University of Notre Dame. And the groundskeeper says to him, "You're 5 foot nothing, you're 100 and some pounds nothing, and you think that you deserve that? You just put in 2 years with the greatest football team in the land, and you hung in there and you hung on tough." And then he mentions that, you know, your attitude was very inspiring, because he at one point was actually a player. That groundskeeper was a player for the University of Notre Dame, but his attitude changed because he worked hard for 2 years and never got to see the field, so he quit the team. So this next slide talks a little bit about what is it that you deserve. Well, you deserve exactly what you have right now, and you have what you've earned. So based upon our work and based upon our effort and the effort that we put into work, that is what we deserve. And our attitude, specifically a positive attitude, us to enjoy the effort and the work. So in turn, it leads to greater benefits. So in that situation there, being a football player, you know, he reminded Rudy that you put in 2 years of practice with the greatest football team in the land, and that doesn't put you automatically to be able to run out of the tunnel and stand on the sidelines during a game, because it's more than that. What you deserve is the fact that you put in the time, you put in the effort, and that's what your attitude needs to focus on, not what you're entitled to. So, you know, as we talk about this positive attitude today, and we talk about what we deserve as leaders, but we also talk about what our employees deserve, it's all based upon what you've earned. Next slide, please. In this process, we have these demons that we fight. And excuses are the reason that you can't make it. And it is italicized there, because what is it? For you as a leader, for you as a business person, what is it? What are the things that your excuses, your demons are holding you back on? Is it your attitude? I asked that question this morning. Or is it your employee's attitude? If you are an employee, is it your attitude toward other employees? Is it your attitude towards your boss, or those people superior to you? You know, excuses are a sign of a bad attitude, and excuses get you nowhere. And so what we first have to do in realizing that we want to get to a positive attitude and formulate that in our everyday life, we have to realize that there are, and I call them demons, there are these negative aspects out there that want to pull us back, and we get caught up into that. Next slide, please. So what have you accomplished in the past 7 days? Did you accomplish what you wanted? Did you achieve success? If you didn't accomplish a goal or achieve success, why not? See, these are questions, these 3 questions are something that we should really ask ourselves every day. And believe it or not, and I'm not just talking this just because I'm doing a webinar this morning, but I have a notebook at home that I have my goals for each day and each week. And even though I'm retired, there's certain things that I want to accomplish every single day. So what if I don't accomplish that? Then I can answer that first question. Did I accomplish what I wanted? Some days, yes. Some days, no. But that doesn't mean if I don't accomplish something on my list that all of a sudden I should have a bad attitude about that. because when we start making lists and we start prioritizing things, sometimes we make our list way too long. So what I would encourage people to do is 3 to 5 things that you want to accomplish. And then when you check off those 3 or 5 things a day, at the end of the day, you can see that I accomplished that and I had a victory. And when you do those things, your attitude is very positive. You remain a robust person. Did you have success? Did you do what you needed to do to move yourself down that track in your business? Was it closing a big deal? Was it getting a partnership with somebody that you've been working on? When we work towards these things in our these 3 questions rather, we can identify and realize that when we achieve those things, it does foster positive attitude. If you didn't accomplish these goals or achieve these events, why not? We really need to ask ourselves, so in my list of things to do on a daily basis, if I didn't get to point number 5, what was the reason for that? Well, maybe I got hung up on number 4 and it took me longer than what I anticipated. But that doesn't mean that I should feel bad about that. I just move number 5 to number 1 on the next day. And when I do that, I know that that's going to happen. Now, obviously, you may schedule the way that you set goals and the way that you want to move things forward individually, and that's fine. But I'm going to ask you the next 2 questions as well. Was it your attitude that caused you not to be successful or to not achieve a goal? Was it your attitude? And oftentimes we have to become vulnerable with ourselves. We have to realize and be honest with ourselves that sometimes it is our attitude. Over the years, 34 years of education, my last 18 of those being a school superintendent. And what I realized early on, about year 4 of my superintendencies of those 18, and that is I needed to shut up and listen to other people's perspectives. And when I did that, it fostered more of a positive attitude towards me, because if people didn't do what I wanted to do, I ended up having a little bit of a bad attitude. But as we went through the process and I looked for other perspectives and listened to those perspectives, my attitude actually got better, because now I don't have to be the person with all of the answers. I can be the leader, but I don't have to have all the answers. The people that we sit around tables with, the plan, many of those people have wonderful ideas. And we can now empower them and their attitude by including them in the processes. So as we look at this as well, was it somebody else's attitude that caused us to not achieve a goal or success? Did we get hung up on something that somebody didn't do the right way in our business? Or did we get hung up on maybe a dialogue with somebody at home before we even left for the office that morning or for our work site? What causes us to not accomplish things? Do we hang on to things too long? I just want to say this to you, is you really need to reflect on these 5 questions on a daily basis. And it doesn't take a long time to do that, but when you do that, folks, I just want to tell you that it will start to reveal things that will take away some of those demons that we talked about in the previous slide. Next slide, please. Positive attitude. Nope, I think we actually jumped 1 too many. I think there's a slide previous to that. Nope. Go ahead to the next one. I'm sorry. I looked wrong in my notes. Positive attitude. Action allows you to have a positive attitude. Let me explain this. And this slide got a little bit messed up here, but if you look at the lower left-hand corner, action. Action is what we just talked about, is asking ourselves daily those questions. What is it that I want to do? So that's the beginning of my action. And then the next one should be take action, which should be between the 2 green arrows. And now when I look at what my goals and what I wanted to be successful in, now I take action towards that. And then ultimately, when I take action, I'm going to be pursuing more action. So we're going to grow. Now you're saying, well, wait a second, Jeff, how does this have to do anything with positive attitude? I had a conversation with a gentleman just this past Sunday. having lunch after church. And he's been helping another gentleman work on a house, and they've been resetting this house and putting up soffit and new fascia board. And the one thing that he said that really captured my attention is that was they knew what the job was. That was the action. They took action. They recited this home, and the thing that they were working on at that time was the soffit, replacing it with aluminum soffit. And that was taking the action. But he was so excited because what was going to be the next piece to that? Because as they move forward, he got excited because at the end of the day, he knew that there was going to be an accomplishment, something that they could physically see of where they had success, a project that was completed. So sometimes that happens in a very short time period. And sometimes that happens over a longer period. It may be a week, it may be 2 weeks, it may be a month, it may be a year, it may be 2 years. But if we know what the action is, we take action on it, and we continue that more action with it, we strive for it, we continue to develop it. As we do those things, and the key word there is we do it, it maintains a positive attitude in us because we can see the growth, and then we get excited. Next slide, please. Accomplishment. Now, the little word diagram there on the right-hand side is somewhat difficult to see, and for that I apologize. But there on the left side, by the E in scope, I want to point out the word there is efficiency. And if you're a business, large or small, you're seeking success, you're seeking accomplishment. And the bottom line is activity equals action, and actions change attitudes. And so I'll give you another example. I'm a morning person. I get up in the morning early, bright and early. I love watching the sunshine. Since I've been retired, I cook my egg and have some blueberries, and I sit on my front porch and I watch the sunrise and I listen to the birds tweet, and it just really gets me excited for what I'm getting to prepare myself for the day. When I was a school superintendent, I did my best work of the morning. And somewhere along in my journey, I realized that at about 1:30 in the afternoon, I started to change my attitude. I didn't have the same energy. I wasn't looking things at the same perspective. So what I had to do is I had to decide that I have to get out of my office, get out of my chair, and I have to do something different. And what I did was I walked around my school buildings, and I would go see teachers, I would go see support staff, I would go see other administrators. And what I did at that time was I tried to then do something that was empowering to them. I wanted to, at that point, realize that my attitude was bad because I was starting to get a little bit tired in the day. So I needed to do something to empower them. So I would go find somebody doing something good and let them know face to face, oh, that was awesome. I love seeing that, or great work, or nice job. Or if they were gone the previous day, hey, is everything okay at home? Or their children were ill, or they had a doctor appointment or whatever. I would check in on them and say, hey, is everything going okay? Is there anything that you need from me? People need to know that you care. When I did that, I was changing my attitude, but at the same time, I was changing other people's attitude. And that's why I focus on that word efficiency, because for me, efficiency, when I empower somebody else to have a better attitude, the efficiency of their work and the efficiency of our business, in my situation with school, is going to get better. And it did. And when you change those things, folks, and when you focus on that, it's amazing what you can help people with. So next slide, please. All right, so this slide here, I'm going to start with the left side, which is the negative. And these are how we need to really focus on managing attitudes, because in my walk around, sometimes I come across a negative, something bad going on. a cook that's not happy, or a custodian, or my maintenance people that weren't happy, or something, a teacher that just had a difficult time, whatever. But you also get to see things. And so people that have poor attitudes, they waste time. So for me in my business, people would spend a little bit more time in the faculty workroom, and what they would do in that room is not maybe do a lot of work, but more complaining. So they were wasting time. And sometimes you realize that people are stuck in their creativity and their innovation. And, teachers, say to principals, well, I just don't know how to change that lesson because this is the way that I've always taught it. And so now all of a sudden their attitude was different because they were stuck in what the ability to be more creative, to do something. I'm sure we have that in many businesses. Matter of fact, I had a group of people at our home last night, and as people were leaving, one lady who goes to work early and is leading a team said that, I just can't believe how negative this team is. And the reason that we ultimately got to was that team was stuck in their creativity and innovation. They needed something to inspire them, to get them over a hump. And when and I told her, if you can get them to that point, that will change their attitude. The next one is loss of a good employee. When you lose somebody good in your system, that has an effect on other people. It may have an effect on you as the business owner, the business leader. And so when we lose good people, we need to identify why it is we lose good people. And then also recognize that when you lose good people, that's going to have a negative effect and can change our attitudes. Lower morale. We all know what happens there when people have been beat up or beat down, or haven't been told enough that they're appreciated, and people are taken for granted. Morale goes down, and all of a sudden attitudes become more poor, and people think, well, I'm not appreciated, I'm underappreciated, and then you end up actually losing some good people. The loss of loyalty, and loyalty to the company, loyalty to each other as a team member, loyalty to whatever you have going on in your businesses. When you lose loyalty, people's attitudes are going to change, and they're most likely going to try to be divisive and pull other people with them and start making two different groups of people. Now all of a sudden you have a bigger problem. So managing these negative attitudes really should be a focus of not only every employee, but also every business owner. So if you look in the middle there, decreased productivity, negative impacts on employees, to decreased job satisfaction, negative perceptions on managers. That is everything focused right there in one piece. If you had 2 or 3 of any of those on that outer circle, you are going to have issues with that inner circle. And I know that because I've experienced it. So let's go to the other side and talk a little bit more about the exciting part of this. And it's very simple. There are 6 of those: inspiring people, or doing things that inspire you as a person. I have a podcast that I listen to that are inspirational, because I enjoy being lifted up. You're going to notice at the end of at the very last slide today, Triumph Inspire is my own personal company, and it's Triumph Inspire because I want people to be triumphant, and I want to be the person that hopefully that is inspirational to them. And motivation, inspiring is long term. Motivation is short term. What is it that I can do? An attaboy, an attagirl. Go see your employees. Let them know that you care about them. That motivates people. It creates a positive attitude in them. When you have improvement in your system, when you see that, you need to keep a scoreboard and let people know that when there's an improvement, that is a goal that you attained, and you didn't attain that as the business owner or leader. You attain that because of everybody in your system. Now, not everybody in your system maybe have a great attitude and was a part of that, and we're going to talk a little bit here in a moment about how to confront those folks. But when you have improvement, make sure people know that. Be positive. And I know we can't always be positive all the time. So here's what I'm going to suggest. Be positive in your own little, be negative in your own little place. Be positive when you're out with people. Be negative in your own little place. Think about why you're where you're at, manage your own attitude. But then when you're out with other folks, be positive, be excited about what you do, what you are, who you are. Focus. And I'm going to get into focus here a little bit more in a bit, but focus is extremely important. And so I'm going to leave that one for another slide that's coming up. But then here's the other thing. When you have a positive attitude, your creative juices flow and great things happen. People that have positive attitudes are not afraid of change. Now, let's talk a little bit about change. The last 4 months have been a change for us. We had to pump the brakes really fast, and then all of a sudden we had to let some of our employees go. We had to let some of our people, only work part-time. We had to make changes in businesses that were just they were amazing. But here's what we need to do to have a positive attitude in this. Let's be creative of how we move forward. What is it that we can do now as a result of this crisis that can allow our business to advance? And quite honestly, we know that maintaining social distancing and having face-to-face conversations we've been limited that in the last 4 months. But there's advantages that we can do, and with technology, much like this morning, we can get online with other people. And I know today it's me talking, you listening, but I have to tell you, some of the best meetings that I had at the end of the school year were our Google Meets meetings with my administrative team or my maintenance team or my office staffs. And part of it was because I believe that they were in the comfort of their own environment, and they just wanted to see people. So we need to start looking at how we can be creative to maintain this positive attitude as well. Next slide, please, Kristen. So here, this is really the recipe. We have a choice, in our attitude, and I'm not going to read those, but people who have, I guess what I want to do is accentuate the positive side. People that have a positive attitude will pay attention to the good rather than the bad in people, situations, and events. I don't want to beat that horse, but I've said that multiple times this morning. How is it that we can empower other people? How is it that we will allow other people to empower us? Positive attitudes are also rewarded. It means that individuals are encouraged to do the same thing in the future. I mentioned a little bit ago about how to manage folks with that, and I'm going to do that in a slide later as well. But we're going to focus on that one as well. And then if we think positive thoughts, we'll have a positive experience. And just think about that. If we dwell on negative, and this is a real statistic. Typically, we spend 85% of our time dealing with negative stuff. Negative things at home, things that we have to manage, negative things at our business, our work that we have to manage. And that means only 15% of our time is spent on positivity, positive things. Well, if we could even get that to 50-50, 50% dealing with negative stuff and 50% dealing with positive, if we do that, our experiences for positivity and our attitude and other people's attitude will certainly change. There's no doubt about that. And that requires energy, and it requires action, and then more action, and we continue to move on that continuum. So we have that choice every single day. We have that choice in the morning. Do you hop up at your alarm clock, or do you even need an alarm clock? I don't use an alarm clock. I get up every day because I can't for my day. I remember when I didn't have a real great attitude, I would hit the snooze button 2 or 3 times. There's a difference there. You know what? We should, if we're ready to go, we should be ready to go. And that's all about our attitude. Next slide, please. So the recipe. So listen before you blame others. And maybe many of you have read the book, Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But one of his points is seek first to understand, then to be understood. And I've read that book 5 times. And that is the one component that always has really inspired me, that I need to first listen to what other people have to say in their perspectives before I place any blame. And if I do that, what I typically have found, folks, is that I end up with a positive attitude, and it's not about blaming somebody. It's more about how do I empower them. So get all the information that you need to get before you start to target somebody. And instead of targeting them, you will actually end up empowering them. That is a recipe for a positive attitude, not only in you, but also in the people that you come across with. What do you focus on expands? And I mentioned that just a moment ago. There we go. What you focus on expands. So I mentioned focus, and I said I was going to, in that previous slide, I said, what you focus on expands. So think about this. What I focus on, it's going to get bigger in my vision. And that's really what my goal is. That's what my target for success is. If you think about a dartboard, the very center is that little red 1/8 of an inch, maybe it's 1/4 of an inch dot in the center. And it's amazing how all of those other areas, when you really focus on that red dot on a dartboard, really becomes much larger than the entire board if you truly focus on it, if you're getting ready to throw that dart at it. See, what you focus on expands. You know, what job you're working on expands if you focus on it, and you put the attention that's due to that. And on the counter to that, what you ignore shrinks. So if I focus on positive things and I focus on positive attitudes for myself and other people, that's going to expand in my life. It's going to expand in other people. And what I ignore, that's going to start shrinking, just like the other part of that dartboard. It doesn't look quite so big. That red dot looks bigger than the black part. So think about that as we move forward with this positive attitude program. Crisis causes distractions. It does. You all just experienced that. We went through a crisis and it created so many distractions. So many of us didn't realize and didn't have a plan for what if. Well, hopefully you've taken time over the last 4 months that, well, what if now? And we can realize that in order to get through the crisis and that distraction, you have to manage the distraction. You have to realize that it's real. And when you do, your attitude will change. It will become more positive, because now we go back to action, and then more action, and then things start to move, and then we start seeing progress. Pick a chicken. Exactly. You want to laugh, and that's fine. Here's what Fricknick says with regards to picking a chicken. If you have 2 chickens running around out in your yard and you need to catch both of them, you're not going to catch them both at the same time. It's not going to happen. You have to pick one of those chickens and you have to pursue it, and you have to make that your focus. And when you do, the chances of you catching that chicken is greater. Same thing with the stuff that you're dealing with. If you pick a specific piece, your attitude will stay focused, and you'll see that growth happen, and you'll maintain a positive attitude. So just pick one chicken to chase. Believe in people. We have to believe in people. Any business has to do with people. You have employees, there are people. If you're in retail, the people that come and shop in your store, they're people. And you have to believe in them. You have to believe in who they are and what they stand for. I had a situation when my oldest son was in 8th grade, and he was in math class. And during that math class, the math teacher that math teacher degraded another student. And my son, and I was a principal at the time, stood up against that teacher for that student. And ultimately, then I got a phone call. And so I took the phone call and we had that conversation. Well, at dinner that night, I talked to my son and I said, tell me what happened. And he explained his side of the story. There you go. Listen before you blame others. And he told me, he said, Dad, I just don't like her, and I don't like the way she treats people. And this is what I shared with him. You know what? You don't have to like everybody, but you have to respect everybody. She's your teacher. We need to keep that in mind for that, not only believing in people, we don't have to like everybody, but what we really need to do is respect them because we all have differences. And when we respect them, we will believe in them. And when we respect them and we believe in them, we will also value them, which is the next point. We will place value in what they have. And if you look at, again, that top one, the top point, and listen before you blame others, and you start to value people, and you listen more and get those perspectives, you will see that people have great value for you and your business. You will find out that you have great value for you and your business. You will find out that as you move forward with this and have a positive attitude, that things will change in your family life. It'll change with relationship with your children, and it will change relationships with, your siblings. Trust me in this, folks. It's real. And then honestly, and I'm not talking about I'm in love, head over heels, hearts coming out of my, out of my head. I'm talking about unconditional love for people, really, truly caring about them and their families. Like I said, at 1:30 in the afternoon, when I realized that I was becoming a grumpy person, I would go take a walk and try to find good. But I would also try to be good. That's unconditional love for people. Going and checking on that employee that you know that their parent might have been hospitalized, and just asking the question, hey, how's mom or dad doing? Consoling somebody that's lost somebody. It doesn't take much. Taking that hour to go to a visitation, and showing respect. That's unconditional love, and people truly appreciate that. You don't have to say a whole lot, but when you do that, positive attitude is exuded from you, and you feel good about it as well. Next slide, please. Sacrifice what you are for what you want to become. If you are a person that's been struggling with attitude, this is the slide for you. You might be the caterpillar, where you're just slow moving and an inch in your way. You might be the caterpillar in the cocoon, where you feel like that you are all tied up and you just can't get out, and things are just frustrating to no end. But trust me, if you sacrifice what you are for what you want to be and truly self-evaluate yourself, you will metamorphosis from a caterpillar to the cocoon to a beautiful butterfly. And I truly believe that. I didn't put this diagram in there, but if you have a piece of paper and a pencil in front of you, if you could just draw a circle. And in that circle, draw, 6 or 8 pieces like you're slicing a pie. And then after you get through drawing those lines like you sliced the pie, I want you to write 100% at the top of your circle. We get caught up so many times, folks, and it hurts our attitude because we only have 100% to give. So when you look at your piece of pie is 100%. So when I start to pick up my piece of pie and I go, okay, my faith, how much percentage do I give to that? My family, my grandchildren, my work, my friendships with people. I can't give 100% to each and everything every single day. I can't do it. I only have 100% to give. So every single day you need to evaluate what you're going to give each percentage to. And really, whatever that percentage is, if it's 100% of 25%, then give 100% of your 25% when you're in that mode. So when I'm at work, I need to give 100% to whatever percentage that is when I'm at work. But when I go home and it's family time, I need to give 100% to family because I only have 100% to give. You can't give 100% to everything. Does that make sense? Because if you do that, you will stay in that cocoon. You will feel wrapped up all the time. How many people, or maybe you have said this yourself, I just don't know how I'm going to get all this done. I just know how we're going to do this. Well, I had a superintendent when I was a principal, and I was walking down the hallway one day, 100 miles an hour, and he said, "How you doing, Jeff?" And I said, "Well, I'm really busy. I got too many irons in the fire." And he grabbed me by the elbow, he spun me around, he said, "Take some of the irons out of the fire." Man, what great advice is that? You can only do what you can do. So you can crawl like the caterpillar and you're making progress. You can get hung up in the cocoon, but trust me, folks, at the end of that, there's a beautiful butterfly waiting if you just stay the course and you sacrifice what you are, what you really want to become. Next slide, please. So this is where we start to get into real quickly, if you are the business leader, or you're a leader of a team, or even if you're an employee and you see other employees that have bad attitudes, positive versus negative. This is very simple. John Maxwell, not only does he have some great leadership quotes on a daily basis, but he does some great leadership trainings. And he's a spiritual man, which in my opinion has value. But John Maxwell says this: good attitudes among players do not guarantee a team's success, but bad attitudes guarantee its failure. A bad attitude on a team is kind of like a nail in your tire. It's going to slow you down. It's going to stop you. You're going to have to fix it. And so as I talked a little bit about how to manage employees or cohorts in your co-employees, you can't ignore the problem, but you also can't be the problem. So there's two things we need to talk about there. Is the attitude problem me, or is the attitude problem somebody else? But either way, you can't ignore it. You have to address poor attitudes. My suggestion is you do not do that in a team meeting. You do that individually. And I would also tell you, in my experiences, you want to change an attitude and you want to actually really foster change in a person and watch them grow, then you don't do it while you're angry immediately after a meeting and you saw a poor attitude. You think about it. You take time. Sometimes it's 24 hours, sometimes it's 48 hours, but at some point you have to address it, and you do that individually. And most importantly, you have to be specific in what that attitude is, what that bad attitude is, and how it's affecting other people. It's kind of like if you could videotape it, like an old coach does, like me, and I can show my player what they're not doing correctly, I can change that behavior. I can change the way that they do it. So you have to be specific in what that attitude was in order for them to realize. And then most importantly, you want to change an attitude, you do less talking than they do. You ask them those leadership questions that you should ask, or those friend questions that you should ask, those colleague questions. Is there something going on? And let them talk. Is there something I can do to help? Is there something specific that's bothering you? There always is a root to the evil. Always. And when you can get somebody to say what it is, now you can take them from the cocoon closer to the butterfly. You can make that happen. Because if you don't, guaranteed that you're going to have failure within your team, you're going to have failure within your company. And then here's the other thing: celebrate and recognize great attitudes. Celebrate it and recognize it. And sometimes you can do that amongst the team. You can do it in front of your entire team. We often do that for, employees of the month or employees of the year. But sometimes people don't want that big public recognition. And if you know the people that you're working with are for well enough, sometimes people are just really okay with you calling them in and giving them a $100 gift card for a dinner, someplace for dinner, and letting them know that the work that they've done has been phenomenal, and that I realize that you don't like a big shindig and big recognition, and do that privately, and you will be amazed at what people will do on the backside of that. So To end this, what attitude are you going to have? What are your expectations? What are you going to do to change you? And what can you do to change other people? This is a critical time for anybody in business, for anybody, and I'm an educator right now. Educators are just getting slammed, especially administrations and of education, because no plan is perfect. And a lot of people are just really frustrated right now. But if we maintain a positive attitude and we exude that, we show that, we can really help a lot of people, including ourselves. So with that, the last slide has a little bit about me and how you can get in touch with me. There you go. And we will take any questions that you might have, and we'll respond to those.
So if you have any questions, please add them now. We do have one right now. It's what approach do you generally take to influence those that influence the rest of the team?
Well, the important piece to that is you have to get specific on what is that influence, and is it positive influence or is it negative influence? If it's positive and you want to maintain and sustain that, you need to make sure that you empower that person. You need to give them the tools that they need to continue to move a team forward. If it's a person that has negativity and it's a poor influence on a team, then you certainly need to be specific, as I mentioned, about what it is that they're being negative on and address that behavior, but let them know that this isn't about always being punitive. It's about helping them to grow. And again, I'm going to remind you, there's always a root to whatever that negativity is. And when you can have them identify that to you and with you, the two of you together can work to get through that. And there's always something that when you identify it will certainly help you to move forward.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. Wanted to just let you know when Jeff and I talked about this, what he was going to talk about in this webinar. We did a poll just a few weeks ago asking people what is the thing you look for most in a new hire, and 54% of those responding said positive attitude was the main thing above education, above training, above experience that they are looking for is positive attitude. So whatever we as employers can do to improve our attitude and the attitude of those that we employ, we're going to improve our companies 100% for sure. So thank you so much for that. Thanks to Pro Rehab for sponsoring today's webinar. Thank you to Jeff again for this valuable information. And the webinar today was recorded and will be available tomorrow in the Chamber's Business Advocate News e-news and also on our Chamber's YouTube channel. So all of our webinars that we've hosted in the past few weeks are available to you always through our YouTube channel. So if you need a refresher on anything, please take a look at those. You'll be receiving an evaluation form in your inbox. Please complete that and return it to us. So we value your input, and we're always helped us in planning future programs. And I will always remind you that if you have a program topic that you would like to hear about, please let us know. You can put it in the chat box, and we'll take a look at those. So our next webinar is going to be on Thursday, July 30th at 9 a.m. And we have Laurel Meneg from the Pacific Institute who's going to be presenting a program on Invent the Future. So another great motivational topic about how do we look at ourselves and how do we move ourselves forward into our future. Last webinar, we had Dr. Tom Hill, who spoke on designing your exceptional life. He is actually going to be here in Effingham next Tuesday, July 21st, from 11:30 to 1, and we're hosting a free lunch and learn with Dr. Hill. Bring your own lunch to the Effingham Public Library and just sit in and listen to the wisdom of Dr. Tom Hill, because he has a lot of wisdom to share. If you participated in his webinar 2 weeks ago, you'll know that. Inspiration, you talk about inspirational. Dr. Hill is in his mid-80s and still very actively influencing many, many, many lives. So you're never too old to make those have those influences. So again, thank you for joining us today. I wish you the rest of a good day today and looking into the weekend. So have a good day. Thank you.
Next Thursday is Dr. Hill.